So my name is Moinak Chaudhary. I am a PhD student in the English department here at the U. And I teach a course which is called Kashmir, Saffron and Tea, Making and Belonging at the Borders of India. So it's basically a course where students, OLLI members, get to learn about some products made just in India or of Indian characteristics and the history behind that. So that's what my course is. So right before OLLI, but from my second year onwards, I was part of this initiative of with this other organization called Global Minnesota. What they do is take international students to elementary and primary schools and middle schools in Minneapolis and beyond. You get to meet the students and then talk about your country, its culture, religion, but also what schools look like in India, so that students kind of have that connection when they know about a country. And I was doing this for early learners. I kind of wanted to do this for the other end, lifelong learners with OLLI. So this was a really good opportunity to do that. And what I will talk about later is it's really great when teaching often helps you learn about things in your own way. So OLLI, I'm really thankful to OLLI and Culture Corps for giving me this opportunity. Take the distance from here in Minneapolis to Chicago, right? It's about 400 miles. So take that whole line, that distance, and if I put it back home and draw a circle around, right, I get Kolkata, in a little bit in the south, which is a really vibrant city in India. But what's interesting is I cross boundaries of countries such as Bangladesh, Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, China, and a little bit further off Myanmar. What I mean by that is an interesting area which is very diverse, but also has geopolitical tensions. So I really carry that awareness with me when I put this course together. The other thing that influenced me was, so knowing that my grandparents and before them, they were migrants because India was divided after colonization into lots of individual countries. So I wanted to talk about this complexity, right? Diversity, but also tension. But I wanted to do this in a way that was accessible without overwhelming the OLLI learner who really is, maybe just getting to know about India. So that was a really interesting experience of using my cultural background to put together a course. Yeah, this builds on something I was speaking earlier as well. And, I was looking for ways to understand my own country better. Sometimes you take things for granted, right? You've learned a few things in school, history and geography, but for examinations, you do it and you forget. And then you see some things on TV and then you forget as well. But I wanted to understand a few things a little bit better by doing my own study, right? Doing my own research. But I also wanted to talk about it. And some of the things that I really, really learned was some really about myself, right? And where I come from, which is something you don't always get the chance to do. For instance, I want to learn about parts of India which make certain products that are only found in these areas. The time and hard work put into making some of these things. And to really understand how to value products and commodities you find, right? The other really interesting thing that I learned was the effect of climate change on these cultivations, right? And how it's affecting the making of it. So it's really interesting how, of course, in OLLI, you get to teach, but really learn about yourself and where you come from. So that was a really good experience. One main really helpful guide was an online course that's been put together on Canvas by Astrid Schmid. So this is a really good course coming from a neuroscientist herself on how to approach learning, particularly for lifelong learner. So that's a really good place to go if you want to start teaching a course. Anyone can do it. The other tip is kind of circles back to what we actually started from, my experience with going to elementary school classrooms, right? So basically the tip is start with something similar before you go to something that's different, right? So in a way, create this sort of dialogue and ease people into it. For instance, I wanted to speak to the school children about India's love for cricket, which is a sport that has a lot of following, but people in US might not know what cricket is. So in order to introduce that, I started with baseball, which people are more familiar with. Similar rules, you have a bat and a ball and fielders, and that kind of helped the students understand what cricket was and why there was such a passionate following in India. So two things: take the course on Canvas put together by Astrid, and second, try and think about how to organize your course so that you start with something that's similar and ease the person. So, for instance, I wanted to talk about uh, complexities in India, especially northeastern India, where people are often seen as different from the rest of India. But in order to do that, I started with things that are familiar to OLLI members. They've heard of the fabric, cashmere, and how it's a luxury fabric. I started with the rare spice, saffron, and why it's grown in India. And I started with tea. Now, lots of other traditions have tea, but India has its own ways of growing tea and cultures around drinking tea. So I wanted to bring all this together, which is familiar but also different. So those were the two tips. Thanks to the OLLI team and the Culture Corps team for giving us this opportunity.